You may be wondering, one of these is not like the other, and that is because you'd be right. So, for this part of the video, I'll be filming some close-ups of the Romance of Men Tachi in comparison to, well, a sword that is completely unfair to compare it to. This is my antique Tachi. Yes, it is the one that I frequently mention in my videos. And the Koshirai on this blade is, well, I don't have the Saya in the frame, but this is World War II vintage Koshirai, Type 97 Kai Gunto, meaning Navy, Koshirai. And this was my first Nihonto, and also my first antique in general. So I have that out because the Romance of Men sword is, at least in regards to curvature and length, very similar to the sword. And the reason that I'm also comparing them is generally just how the Suka, which is the hilt, feels, and some other things. So let's just get right into it. So this antique, by the way, is a mid-Muromachi Sui Bizen, so late Bizen Tachi. Bizen was one of the first swordsmithing traditions in Japan that is documented, and Sui Bizen generally refers to late Bizen, I believe, like 1400s to the end of the 1500s. Bizen does continue into other provinces, but Bizen itself, the major swordsmithing hub, was actually destroyed by, if I remember correctly, a large flood. And I believe that was in the 1590s. I'll throw up some text on the screen to make sure that information is correct. This sword is a little earlier than that flood, mainly because it has what is called fumbari, which I'll put a diagram on screen explaining that. But yeah, this is basically my standard for how a Japanese sword should handle, at least when it comes to Tachi. This is also a sword that I have trained with, and I have cut bamboo and animal carcasses with. Is it unfair to put a 500-year-old sword that was meant for battle against a modern Chinese reproduction? Yeah, I think so, but I don't really care, because I think that speaks more about how good this sword by Romance of Men actually handles. Now, this sword is oiled, so I'm trying not to touch it a little bit. But, yeah, that's how high of an opinion I have on the handling of the Romance of Men Tachi. Now, if we line up the swords side by side, Suba to Suba, you'll notice that the curvature, and I'm hoping my camera does not make it too difficult to demonstrate that, is very similar. Now, this one is exactly 3.0 centimeters, 30 millimeters of sori, curvature, measured from the Munemachi to the Kisaki. This is 3.2, and it is a very... That amount of sori I'm preferential to because of the antique, but I mean, not all Tachi are that curved. In fact, some Tachi are very straight, but that is not the subject of this video. Really, I'm going to be talking more about how the Suka feels in the Romance of Men Tachi in comparison to an antique. Obviously, this is World War II furniture, so it's a little more mass-produced, but that does not change the fact that this was meant to be used in combat even in the 1940s. That's, you know, kind of what I'm getting at, is I hold the Romance of Men Tachi in a pretty high regard. Now, I have my camera set up in a little awkward way, but one thing that's different between these two swords that is immediately obvious, ignoring their age and the type of steel that they are, is that the Romance of Men Tachi has a bohi. Now, I usually do not like bohi at all. It is unnecessary for modern swords to have bohi. Now, people like to chase tachikaze, people like the sound of the swoosh, but I personally am not interested in that at all. Which is why I quite like Shinogi Zukuri without any bohi at all, as you can see. This is just bog standard Shinogi Zukuri. Does that detract from how I feel about the Romance of Men's Sword? No. I think it handles very well, and even though I do not personally care about Tachikaze, the sword handles well enough that if you wanted a recreational cutter and not for martial arts practice, such as Kenjutsu or Iaido, I could easily recommend this. This is going to be a shorter review because I've done multiple takes and I've had nonstop audio issues, and now I'm using a very weird audio setup because my phone's microphone is slightly damaged. So that is why I am filming like this. One of the things to point out with the Romance of Men's Sword is a visible sharpening line. And I'm not really sure how well I can get that on camera, but this kind of has a secondary bevel, but it does not cut with the same issues that a sword with a secondary bevel has. This sword cuts very fine. The suka feels good. It's nice and comfortable. If I hold it like this on camera, you can see that I am able to just very easily hold it. The fuchi is not what gets in the way. It's more the fact that you can feel the Samegawa panels, which you can actually see right there. You can feel it, so when you index it for proper tenouchi, which tenouchi means grip. I use a lot of Japanese terms, I apologize. The tenouchi will sometimes feel weird, and you can feel it when you cut. The other complaint that I have is the sarute. Now, historically speaking, this was from a variety of materials. Metal, I've even heard claims of wood. I've never seen proof of that. But many times this was fabric. And actually, my Tachi in World War II had a silk sarute. Now, it is long gone, but it used to have one. And that was before I received it. So, a sarute this pronounced leaves a little to be desired, and the sukamaki being anchored to that sarute, if this sarute ever becomes too loose, or it, wears out from rotating, as you see, that will cause the sukamaki to come undone. So that is one complaint that I have. Now, the sword also has some nicks near the hibaki, but I am not going to detract any points from the sword because of that. Because frankly, I am not worried about it. It's not something that I can really deduct points from, because I assume that's just part of it being not a review sample, but the fact that it may have been sent to more than just one person. The swords have a very similar point of balance, and I don't want to directly touch my antique, but so about right there is where my fingers are, my index finger that's balancing on. So that is, I don't know, that far forward. Now let's compare it to a sword from the Muromachi period. Now, obviously, the balance is going to be affected by the Tsuba and the Koshirai, but the point of balance is relatively similar, which bodes well. A good handling Tachi that is in Tachi Koshirai is kind of unheard of on the reproduction market coming out of Longchuan. LK Chen had a sword that was based on a Tachi that they put into Uchigatana Koshirai, but that sword does not look anything similar to that sword, and many reproduction Tachi on the market struggle from just not handling like Tachi, period. You will find a lot of Tachis just on the repro market handle just like Uchigatana. Now, this sword, the Romance of Men Tachi, has Uchigatana tapering, but it does not have true Uchigatana handling. And I don't really know how else to word that other than you need to just get hands-on with Uchigatana that are Nihonto. Forgive me, my cat has just walked in through the cat door that's next to my dinner table. So that said, that's not really a gripe against the Romance of Men Tachi. Getting true Tachi Sugata and tapering is something that is easier when you have measurements of antiques, but using the measurements of those antiques will often drive up the price. This sword is like below 300 USD at the time of this video. So I'm kind of all over the place, but really what I'm trying to say is it's a good deal. As a practitioner, ignoring the Koshirai, this is a very good deal of a Tachi. And let me actually bring the Saya here. Gotta be careful because I don't want to damage my... The Koshirai on the Tachi for Romance of Men is very nice. It is a Itomaki no Tachi Koshirai with a glossy kind of pearlescent finish to it. It's very aesthetic. You have the Tokugawa Mon. I forget if it's the Triple Polonia crest. I don't remember exactly. Sorry, I'm not a true Tokugawa patriot. And there's a consistent floral motif on the ashi, on the kojiri, on the semegane, and the koiguchi, as well as the fuchi, kashira, and tsuba. Now, all of this is, all the metal parts of the koshirai are cast, which probably helps with the price of the Romance of Men Tachi. That said, it's aesthetically appealing. My only recommendation to Romance of Men would be to perhaps use adhesive that does not come, it seems to, there we go. Adhesive that does not dry up too easily from travel, because the koiguchi and the lower ashi have travel room. Now, that's easily fixed if you want to re-glue it, or even just put a thin layer of glue and just use some toothpicks and push it in. But, I mean, for the price point, this is the first time I've ever been able to actually recommend a production line Tachi from any company coming out of Longchuan. So much so that I actually can compare it to the handling of an antique. You're not able to say that most days. So I'd say that's a pretty good, some pretty good attributes of a reproduction sword. My closing thoughts on it really are, I just hope they keep improving. It's good to see reproduction Tachi of this quality and at this price point, especially as swords are getting more expensive with the economy getting rapidly worse as the time of this video. So, yeah, I will film some close-ups and then I'll make some closing remarks about the sword. I just need to improve. Although, I am curious if I can cut that area. That would be an impressive amount of accuracy. Yeah, close enough. It's a better cut. Incomplete cutting. Well, some closing remarks about the sword. I am very impressed for the price point. I mean, a Tachi below $300 in actual Tachi Koshira is rare. Obviously, there are some corners that have to be cut when it comes to this price point. That said, this is still aesthetically a very fine Tachi, and I have no real problem recommending this to someone who, if you're not a practitioner, or maybe you are a practitioner and you just want a blade with sori that is, double what is usual on Uchigatana that come from Longchuan, or you just want a very nice looking sword that will and very effectively will cut just about anything. It is a mono steel blade. I have no problem recommending this at all to anyone. And if you want a Tachi that handles pretty close to mine, which is an antique, this is probably the closest you're going to get for below $300 that is also in Koshirai and doesn't hurt to use. And when I mean doesn't hurt to use, I'm referring to, for example, cloud hammers. Some of them have very terrible Koshirai on them that is so poorly cast that there are jagged edges in my experience handling 3 different cloud hammers. So I would say overall, easy recommend for me. Thank you again to Dilatrex for sending me this sword to review. And you will be seeing a failed replica of the antique that you just saw next to this sword on his channel at some point, hopefully before or hopefully after this video comes out, but I'm making no promises. Until then, I'm Gucci Katana. I'll catch you later.